Most people know me as someone who is interested in mathematics and the fields closely connected to it. But as you just heard, one of my other deep passions is music. This may lead us to an interesting question. How can music, something usually associated with emotion, attract someone like me, a person who bases the vast majority of his life on just logic and rational thinking? And today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share with you my opinion on how math meets music. My first contact with music occurred when I was around 5 years old, and I began to attend the School of Music in our town. Well, it was my parents who partially forced me to go there, but I eventually overcame the resistance, and by 9, my saxophone journey began. I wasn't fully dedicated to practicing like most of the other kids, and I played fairly irregularly. But surprisingly, one day, my teacher decided that I was advanced enough to start learning jazz pieces, And from that moment on, my relationship with music gradually turned by 180 degrees. I progressively spent more and more time just improving my skills and technique, and at my music obsession peak, I spent several hours a day just on that. Even though this amount decreased after taking on the IB diploma program, I still managed to lay a strong enough foundation to base my further music work on. Now that you roughly know of my music timeline, I also consider important to mention that I was developing an interest in mathematics from my elementary school years. When I was around 12, people around me advised me to start looking for real-world applications of mathematics and use it rather as a tool. And so music seemed to be the most obviously pleasing challenge to find maths in. So I took my grasp of music theory and my interest in mathematics, combined it with the proficiency of our local teachers, and the conclusion was pretty resolute. There is definitely a strong connection between music and mathematics. However, before I describe to what this really means to me, it would be useful to define music beyond the sound you may have previously associated it with. Music is, as you know, made of tones, and tones are nothing but waves of pressure moving through the air. A fundamental physical property of waves is their frequency, which is definitely representable by a number. Therefore, music is nothing but a whole bunch of numbers. Also, one important aspect of music is its listenability. This refers to whether an audience enjoys listening to a piece or not. Among other factors, it is decided by the harmonies, consonances being played, and the overall flow of melody in that particular piece. Even the ancient Greeks coined what is known to us today as a pleasant harmony. This refers to when two or more tones are played consecutively or simultaneously, like this. As you hear, some of them sound good, some of them not really that good, but by the correct choice of the ratio of the frequencies, a well-sounding consonant is made. If we then only consider the standard or so-called diatonic scale, which majority of people in the Western culture consider musically nice, we end up with various combinations. Most of them, once again, sound disharmonious or maybe cacophonous for some of us. But if we choose these intervals correctly, we end up with a regular chord. And now I finally get to the reasons why I have appreciated jazz. Normally used chords, major and minor ones, are all based just on 3 tones. But in my opinion, that's nothing bad. They both serve the purpose. They set the mood, happy, too happy, or sad, respectively. On the other hand, jazz chords are composed of at least 4, usually up to 6 or even more notes. And since there are 12 tones in each octave, they become somewhat compressed and locally disharmonious, since some of the intervals are simply not that clean. In other words, they create a kind of tension, a potential that is yet to be unveiled. That brings me to the second point, being the sequence of the chords played, or as we call it, the progression of chords. Every part has an increased intricacy, and that pulls me in as a listener, but most importantly as a musician. Despite the benefits of the current music, we must also bear in mind its limitations. In 2011, an Australian band called Axis of Awesome published a piece called 4-Chord Song. It is based on fractions of around 40 pop songs that are composed of just, as the title suggests, 4 chords. And the list could go on. This amount of oversimplification and repetitiveness in the current music makes it, in my humble opinion, poor and desolate. And I believe it is caused by the early mentioned linearity of the 3-tone chords. On the other hand, correctly chosen jazz chords and their succession adds a whole new dimension to the piece. There is a popular joke going around the musical community. Do you know what's the difference between a jazzman and a pop musician? Jazzman plays 4,000 chords for 4 people, whereas a pop musician plays 4 chords for 4,000 people. Well, this obviously hyperbolic joke once again refers to the listenability aspect of the music. And yeah, most music theory experts share the opinion that a key component of a well-comprehensible song is periodicity, a systematic approach. You'll likely agree with me that spotting patterns in some of the songs you hear in radio is nothing difficult at all. In other words, these simple structures may make us feel safe in the message and help us understand the music. Similarly, most of us may approach math and sciences because some of us can settle down on just the simplistic procedures and on the basic functions of the field. But if it is needed to take one step further, some may break out in sweat in areas such as multivariable calculus in mathematics. However, if we had taken this approach of limiting our scope just to, as in this case, 4 chords, we would have never discovered the laws of nature, just the superficial ones, and the current stage of development in, for example, medicine or technology would have never been reachable. And it is through this complicated blending of chords and complexity that a true discovery is made. As someone who would like to pursue a career in sciences, I naturally do not and cannot settle on these procedures since they are now simply replicable. And the same applies to my musical sense as well. I understand that certain periodicity and repetitiveness in a song is necessary since it is a system, but considering just the simple roots is not a way to progress. Perhaps some of you may have been applying this kind of thinking to, I don't know, classical music as well. And you would be right, except for that one more thing, one more added criterion that jazz brings to the table: the freedom to interpret. A jazzman is not chained by any stave. He may play whatever he likes, considering fitting at the time, as long as he is aware of all the characteristics of the consonances being played, as well as those that are to follow. And this constantly aware, thinking outside the box approach frees the artist from the boundaries of bars and catapults him into space to create something new. And this is where his math meets his music.